Let's say you're playing a game like UHC, Skywars, or a form of Bed Wars. For various reasons, you decide to play off of a server on a local private world. Unfortunately, you're unable to privately communicate with your teammates efficiently. This video walks you through a method of creating a team chat system utilizing the GameTest API. By listening to sent messages, the message can be redirected to only a certain group of people. Introduced in Minecraft Beta 1.16.230, the GameTest API have been in active development. Each non-hotfix release has introduced something new to the system. The main use of GameTest is for creators of all types to be able to quickly test and prototype certain parts of a project. However, GameTests are not just limited to testing. Many features of GameTests can be easily implemented to create a more interesting gameplay experience. While this has not been fully endorsed by the GameTest team, a Q&A with developers in August of 2021 suggests that they may plan on moving in that direction. While GameTests have changed the lives of many creators, it is still important to note that this is an experimental features. The difference between stable and experimental features can be defined in many ways, but in general, experimental features are in constant development. Minecraft uses format versions to ensure backwards compatibility can be maintained with older packs. However, creations using experimental features are not guaranteed to work in the future. They are still in active development and so can change with or without notice. For example, the old scripting API was recently removed from Minecraft. The scripting API was always experimental and was never stable, which is why it could be removed. If it was stable, current versions of Minecraft would still be supporting the latest stable version of this API. Basically, GameTests are constantly changing. This means that this tutorial has a chance of becoming useless if the team so chooses. I will do my best to keep the pinned comment updated with any changes to this tutorial that should be noticed. Using GameTests is a great way of getting introduced to a larger world of coding. Unlike the rest of the add-on system, GameTests use a real language and uses what could be called proper syntax. With most add-ons, the logic is already built into the game and you just use provided templates, which the game then assembles into its own parsable code. These so-called templates are all the different components, mulling strings, events, and so forth. With GameTests and the rest of the programming world, these templates are not natively provided. Sure, some default classes like date and math exist, but for the most part, you need to build from the ground up. While add-ons teach some skills, the majority of add-ons are basically just drag and drop forms. You may need to research the valid inputs of a field, but you won't be diving into how the form data is then parsed and then executed. You may learn to break down the different functions of an entity to form the entity itself, but you won't be breaking down the actual logic of each function. If you want to learn to code through Minecraft, GameTests help to fill this gap. This video is not like many others. The goal is not to teach you the syntax of GameTests, nor is it to teach you JavaScript. The main purpose of this video is to grant you an introduction to any form of coding. The syntax and everything will come naturally with time as you settle into a preferred language. The science behind this is the main thing that needs to be learned. Because GameTests is just regular JavaScript code give or take a few features, writing GameTests is similar to any other code. Therefore, the main bulk of actually coding is spent planning how it works. I'm going to be using FreeMind, a helpful flowchart tool, to plan everything. You may find that using a flowchart is helpful, or you may find something else that suits you. Maybe a plain text file is enough. Whatever the case, whenever you're developing anything that takes time, I highly recommend using something to lay out your plan. You'll forget something otherwise. We need to break down the problem into its actual parts. How will we get to the goal? Well, obviously we need different teams and a way to assign them. Let's use tags, since these are the easiest. Scoreboards are more difficult. For the entire plan, we need to test if a player has sent a message. Then, we get that player's tags. We'll assume the team tags are team, followed by a number. Finally, we find all the players with the same team tags, and we redirect the message to them so that they are the only ones receiving the message. It might sound difficult, but it really isn't. With the basic plan down, the next step is to ask questions and do research. The goal of each question is to work towards a certain part of the flowchart. I'll skip the question process, but in general, break down each task into even smaller tasks and ask the question like, how do I get all the players in the world? Naturally, after asking a question, the next step is to do research on it. Add-on documentation is scarce compared to main languages, so I will link the main resources in the description. With all the research done, we can develop the script. First, we create a scripts folder followed by a .js file in the behavior pack. The Mojang Minecraft module contains all the objects and functions we need to develop this team chat, so we'll import that. Specifically, we only need the world object for the main logic and the entity query options class for efficiently selecting players. We'll destructure the import as such. Afterwards, we need to subscribe to the Before Chat event. This runs right before a message is sent and certain properties may be redirected. We then need to get the tags of the person who sent the message and filter it down to their team tags. This line does it in a compressed manner by getting the tags from the sender and then running a built-in filter function to make sure the tags are set to the variable following the syntax we specified. This just helps to shorten code. However, remember that coding has tons of different ways to do something. If this is confusing to you, find a different way of filtering the team tags. Because of the way the entity filtering works, we will create a targets variable which holds all the targets for the message. A function will be ran on each of the tags in the tags variable. For each tag in the tags variable, the system will get all the players of the world filtered to include only one tag, and ensuring the sender is not one of them. All the returned players will then be converted into an array and pushed into the targets variable. To prevent duplicate messages from being sent to some players, a quick method of converting an array into a set and then back into an array removes all the duplicate players. Finally, we set the sendToTargets property to true, which will filter the recipients that this message goes to. For the last part, we set the targets property to the targets variable we created. This tells the game who the message goes to. Due to quirks, we also need to simulate the message being sent to the sender, and so we run a tellraw command at the end. The final part of the add-on is to create the manifest.json file. Create it how you normally would. The module has a type value of script with an optional language value of JavaScript and an entry value which specifies the path to the script file. Add this dependency to the pack. This is required for the Mojang Minecraft module to work. Information about this UUID can be found in the description. The last step is to test the pack. As of right now, game tests are experimental, so you must have the GameTest framework experimental toggle enabled for this to work. Congratulations on building your team chat system. If you want to stick around, I have a few final things that I want to mention. Now that you have successfully built your system, I have an extra challenge for you. Create an all-scene tag or admin permission which allows users with that tag to intercept every message that's sent. This way, server administrators can still moderate chat messages being sent between players. A hint, remember how we filtered certain team tags? The getTags method returns an array, and the filter method also returns an array. What is an array and what can you do with it? If you're stuck, these questions will help point you in the right direction. It's possible that this video may have been slightly confusing at times. There's so much more that could be covered, but as always, there's never enough time to do it, and it isn't worth covering it all in one video. If you're interested in knowing more, I highly suggest taking a dedicated lesson on computer science or JavaScript and explore the GameTest documentation more. Other talented add-on creators are also active in a variety of communities, such as Discord servers, and you're free to ask questions there. As always, if you have any feedback or questions about any part of this video, feel free to let me know in the comments or anywhere else. The best way for you to get what you want is to ask for it in a way that is easily understood. With that being said, that is all for this video. Thank you for being curious and willing to watch. I hope that you learned something from this video and that your time was well spent. With that, thanks again, and I hope you all have a great day.